Okay. Welcome to episode 5 of the Running Shorts podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lee. As a reminder, Running Shorts is a running-themed podcast that interviews runners, the community that supports them, race organizers, equipment and apparel manufacturers, and more. We speak with everyone from back-of-the-pack penguins, mid-packers, age group winners, to world-class elites to find out their training secrets, favorite races, and running history. Today, what we're doing is we are interviewing the community that supports them. So that is Elizabeth, and she has been part of my pace group or support crew for the last decade plus. So we're going to talk to her about what it's like in terms of, handing me gels and supporting me on the course and whether she actually enjoys it or not. And we'll go from there. So let's just move into our dynamic warm-up section. Elizabeth, what was your sport growing up?
Well, I have always been multi-passionate, so I've had short stints in a lot of sports: ballet, gymnastics, soccer, t-ball, but my sport of choice that I played through high school was tennis.
Tennis. And how good were you at tennis?
I started off really bad as a freshman, but I worked my way up to be number one doubles, all-state champs as like a junior and senior. And I love my doubles partner, and we're still good friends.
Got it. Very cool. And how did you get into running? Are you a runner yourself?
They tried to recruit me because I have always been lanky, and I guess there was high hopes for me as a runner, but I didn't start running until I met you.
Which was?
2008, a long time ago. And we did the Jingle Bell 5K.
Jingle Bell 5K in Somerville, Massachusetts. How much do you run today?
It's touch and go, but usually I try and get in about 10-ish miles a week if I'm not training for something. I try and do a half every year and a half. That's about as much as my knees will let me.
Yeah, because you've had a few running injuries.
Yes, quite a few.
And what are those running injuries been?
Patellofemoral syndrome,
which is runner's knee.
Runner's knee. Yep. On my right knee.
Which is the front of your knee is where you feel it.
It feels like someone is chopping me with a knife.
Yep.
And then, actually, I think, that's on my right knee. And then IT band issues on my left, but sometimes because of that, I favor my right, and then I get IT band issues on my right. So it's it's been a journey, but I have learned to really be strict about my cross training and weaving in yoga and other things. I had a long time where I had to do a lot of swimming. I did a try, but now I'm back.
Got it. Yeah, an IT band, when those issues happen, it's typically in the outer part of your leg, and you feel it typically in the knee area. Pretty painful to recover from. It takes a long time.
Yeah, it's really painful. And I once had someone tell me that it was fear, that I should just push through my fear, but it's actually not fear, it's pain. Yeah. So just give yourself some compassion if you struggle with IT band issues. Rolling it out helps a lot, as does clamshells. Clamshells apparently is, the go-to PT exercise for anything. And also just strengthening your your quad is like 4 muscles, quad. But a lot of us only use like the front part, the part that you go up on the hill with. So working on your inner and outer quad is helpful.
So a couple of points of reference. One is I actually didn't know quad referred to 4 muscles. So that is a learning for the day, fun fact of the day. The second thing is that I was not the person that told Elizabeth to push through the pain. That was some random person. So don't think less of me as a result. All right, so let's move into the long, slow distance portion of our conversation. And want to just kind of dive below the surface in terms of learning more about your role as kind of like the support crew. And let's start out with, do you actually enjoy spectating? Is it fun for you?
It depends.
On what?
One, the weather.
Yeah.
It is not much fun to spectate a very long, I mean, a marathon, even you, who is a cheetah in human form, takes at least a few hours. For most of the population, it's like 3, 4, maybe 5 hours. So if it's a rainy, cold, or windy day, it's not going to be much fun for the spectator. And also the course, which I think we'll get into a little bit later, depending on the course and how it's, how many times I can see you, and if it's easy to get from one point to another, and if there's like a good tracking system, and if there's like actual places for spectators to meet you at, it makes it a lot easier and more enjoyable because it doesn't require as much work and emotional toll on the spectator.
Yeah. And not only do you, support me during races, but we've also done a few training runs together.
Many.
Yeah. Many training runs. What do we normally do when we're on when I'm on a training run? How do you typically?
Well, we both kind of do this when we're both training for different reasons. I cannot keep up with Andrew. So when he's training, I usually am not allowed to go on runs with him. So I look out on his long days when I can take a bike and accompany him. And this is something we've been doing for many, many years. Even before, I think when we started it, it was even before we had iPhones. Could that be? And that was more of an issue because you're really fast and you don't really stop at stoplights, and I lose you and it's a whole thing, and then I can't find you again.
Yeah.
But when we've been here in New York, it's been pretty fun because we rent city bikes. So he does the same thing when I'm training for a half because I'm too slow, and it's usually his off day when he accompanies me. And so we'll both rent a city bike, which is one of those like public bike shares, and accompany each other, which is great because we were both training during this past summer. I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Sorry. And we could carry food for each other and water, and it was fun.
Yeah. And so, fun tip, in New York City, if you have an annual pass for City Bike, you can take bikes out for 45 minutes at a time. And so when I was doing a long 2-hour plus run, Elizabeth would, rent the bike, then she would dock it and then quickly unlock it again and then keep going. So that's how we worked on it. So the other fun thing too about New York City is in the summers, there's summer streets. So it's 3 weeks. I think,
so fun.
Typically in July, when the streets are closed. One of the main streets is closed, and runners, cyclists, walkers, strollers, skateboarders, etc. Can
the
just
whole
be
family
on the street. And so that's a really fun thing for us to do as well, where I'll be I'll be running, and then Elizabeth will be biking. What have been some of your favorite races to watch or run in together?
Ooh, okay. So I'll start with watch. I think I was telling you that the Myrtle Beach marathon was one of my favorites. That was forever ago.
So this was back in 2011.
Long time ago. And that like immediately came to mind. One, because there weren't many people. Two, because there were tons of spots that I could see you. So that is fun. And three, because that was when you were really picking up your speed. And I think you got
third.
He got third. And that was just really exciting. And I remember you were really stoked. And I know you've come a long way since then, but there's something like really sweet about like that first time that you hit like a new record like that. I remember also the Marine Corps Marathon, when you ran with the All Marine team, you were like so excited about that. It was a huge honor, and you were in the Marines then. So it was a really big deal. And I felt a lot of pride as a partner. Yeah. And I was living in DC at the time, so it was pretty cool. Yeah, the other one that comes to mind is the Mendocino Ultra, because Mendocino is our happy place. So it's always fun to be up there, and a lot of familiar spots, and it's a trail race. And so
a
it's
little bit different.
A little bit different. There's it's pretty much empty. There are not a lot of spectators. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun because it's like a little bit of a scavenger hunt, because you never quite, because it's through the woods, so you never quite know if you're gonna catch them, and so it's that much more exciting when you do.
Yeah. So on the blog after this, I'll upload a few photos. One is of me and Elizabeth after the 2011 Myrtle Beach Marathon. That's the race that Elizabeth mentioned where I got third place, and there's a picture of us in the award ceremony. The Marine Corps Marathon in 2010, where I was a member of the All Marine team. I'll post a photo of that too. And then, Mendocino is special to us because that's the area where we got married. And in the last episode, I interviewed Sid Garza Hillman, who is the founder and the race director of the Mendocino Ultra. Okay, so moving on, Elizabeth, do you still go to every race, or do you not go to every race now? What's your plan?
Well, I do my best. It's hard to keep up with. So I generally go to all the marathons, of course. That's a big deal. Yeah. If I'm not running them, a lot of times he'll run a full and I'll run the half, which is fun in of itself, but it's a little bit sad because neither one of us
gets to see the other,
gets that support. But some of the shorter one, I mean, he's been like getting really into some crazy races, like with Take the Bridge. That was at 1 a.m. in the morning. Like, I'm not going to go to that.
Yeah. So there's been Elizabeth has kind of lucked out, and she's pulled back from some of these races. So, this year for the New York Road Runners, I was signed up for, I think, about 15 races, and coronavirus has canceled maybe 2 or 3 of them already. And so, the shorter ones, it's typically a little bit more of a convincing to get Elizabeth to go out to watch a 4-mile, 25 minute race. Some of these other races like Orchard Street Runners, which was a 1 a.m. race, Elizabeth didn't go to. Take the Bridge, which is typically, 8 or 9 p.m. Elizabeth, sometimes hit or miss in terms of whether she goes to those, but definitely I think
done one.
You have done one. But I think, for the longer ones, the marathons and ultra marathons, you definitely try to be there.
Yeah.
Have you had any scary moments when spectating, like either scary in terms of how you felt about, whether I was going to get hurt, or scary in terms of your responsibilities as a part of the support crew?
Usually more the latter. It's a lot of pressure to be on gel duty because I know he's like really counting on me and is really gonna not be happy if I screw it up. He's very loving, but it's like a big deal to him, and I feel a lot of pressure to deliver. And we do a lot of strategizing ahead of time, which I think we'll talk about later. And so it kind of makes me feel stupid if I can't like follow through. So that is a lot of pressure because I know you're counting on me. There was another time, we've run Boston how
3
many
times?
3 times. The last time you ran was scary for 3 different reasons. One, it was the year after the Boston Marathon bombings, and there was a lot of security, and I was just nervous about that, and just like the hype around that was a little bit stressful. And also it meant that like they cut off the
course. There was hard to kind of get around. The roads.
And hard to find you at the end because they cut off the chute and all of that. also you were injured that race and took like a million Advils and I was like not happy about that.
Yep.
And I was just hoping that you would make it through okay. And then also I wanted to see you at several spots. And I remember that one was really stressful. I remember being on the tee and tracking you on the phone. And you were so fast that every time I was trying to get off at a stop, you had already passed that stop. So it was annoying and I couldn't, it was hard for me to figure out which stop to get off at because you kept running faster than the T was going.
Yeah. So this is in Boston. The MBTA is the public transit. Certain lines of the T are above ground. The green line is the one that goes from about Boston College, which is mile 20, all the way through the finish by Fenway and the Back Bay. And so, because it's above ground, there's street lights and there's traffic and there's pedestrians, and it can typically be a little bit slower to move. And certainly I think when you are a spectator and the runner's relying on you for gels or emotional support or whatever the case is, there's a lot of pressure to deliver as well.
Yeah. And then I also remember, I think it was your first Boston when I was still studying abroad in Chile, and I had called you using a calling card, which I don't think people use these days. For those of you who are younger, you had to prepay for a card and go walk yourself to a payphone and use the card to dial back to the United States.
Yeah.
So I called your phone I think you were supposed to be done.
I think I was actually, I was supposed to be done. I was carrying a little Motorola Razr flip phone at the time. And Elizabeth was using her calling card to reach me. And when you dialed through, somehow along the course, I had dropped this flip phone. And then when they picked up, they said, hi, this is the medical tent. And
we don't know. We don't have anything to report on your runner.
Right. Because I wasn't in the tent. I just dropped the phone and I kept running. So
that was a little nerve-wracking because I couldn't get in touch with you. I didn't know why you were in the medical tent or what that was all about. But
have you had any least enjoyable races to watch?
Least enjoyable. Well, the Atlanta one we were just at was not super fun. It was like ugly and boring and so very, very not well marked.
Yeah, well, I think two things. One, we were just in Atlanta for the Olympic marathon trials, and also I ran the Atlanta Marathon the day after the Olympic trials. So one, it was just a big running weekend for you.
It's a lot of running
in general.
We also ran a race.
Also ran Take the Bridge race the Saturday night after the Olympic trials. But the Olympic trials were freezing, and we'll post a photo of Elizabeth all bundled up and wrapped up in her scarf and her winter parka and things like that. But it was a really cold day for her. And then the next day at the public marathon, it was a little bit challenging to find the different waypoints that we had established.
It was really, really difficult. Yeah, the mile markers were not clear. There was no app to follow you. I couldn't. And the map was not very helpful, and so I was really nervous. And you have to time. I mean, with him, you have to time it exactly right. Otherwise, you will miss him, and it will be very difficult to catch back up. So, but I did it. So. I was proud about that.
And then I think I remember too that, in the 2010 Marine Corps Marathon, I was part of the All Marine team and I was staying in the team hotel the night before the race. Elizabeth was living in the area and she was staying back at her apartment. And you actually had a gas leak that night.
Oh my God, it was horrible.
Yeah.
I was at some Halloween party or something, and I came home, and I'll spare you the details. But anyways, I smelled a gas leak and I called the fire department. They told me it was not an issue. I actually was waiting in my car for 3-4 hours. I mean, this was 3 a.m. And I think now I would have just called Andrew because he's my partner and asked for help or something. But back then, I guess I was still like, I don't know, nervous or like really respectful of your boundaries because I didn't call him because I knew he had a race the next day. And it was a whole thing. I was like freezing cold. It was October. It's always in
Like
October.
Halloween weekend.
And right before the Marine Corps birthday.
Right.
But yeah.
So you had a
I
gas leak, and then, you had to call the fire department.
I had to call the gas people.
Yeah. You're in your car waiting for them to come and shut off the gas leak. And, then she had to get up at 6 or 7 a.m. After a not very restful night of sleep to then come, spectate and watch. So that
is commitment.
Yeah. That's a good race supporter. So let's talk a little bit about, let's fast forward a few years. We've been kind of talking a lot about 2008 to 2014 timeframe. So let's fast forward and go to 2016, I believe, is when we were in New Zealand for our honeymoon.
Yes.
And during our honeymoon, I signed up for a marathon. You signed up for a 10K race. This was after we had already done a 5-day, 4-night backpacking trip in Milford Sound, which is, I think, considered one of the new 7 wonders of the world. And I guess my question is, like, whose idea was it to do a race during our honeymoon?
Well, obviously yours. But we've been doing this for a long time where we kind of plan our big trip around a race because that's important to you. And so that by default is important to me. So, it was fun. I have fun memories of it and it's fun when I can do it too, just like move my body and see the scenery and like be a part of like the cool kids group. But I also had vertigo. So like, it wasn't awesome.
What does vertigo entail? That you're kind of like dizzy?
I was really dizzy.
Yeah.
Like every step I took, everything was spinning around me.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit tricky for a race.
Yeah.
But it was gorgeous. Queenstown is gorgeous. And I remember it was a beautiful sunny day. And yeah, we've done that. We've had that same kind of pattern the last couple of trips. It's sometimes hard because we have to plan our entire itinerary. Yeah. I remember we had to revise our New Zealand. We were there for 3 weeks for our honeymoon. We had to revise it many times just because we knew we had to be in Queenstown on a specific day.
Yep.
But
yeah,
that's when I married.
So I'll post a photo on the blog as well of me and Elizabeth when we finished the 5-day, 4-night backpacking trip. And then right after this trip, we went straight into, our races the next day. So no rest for the weary.
No.
Okay. So let's talk, mainly what I wanted to chat about in this conversation was what tips do you have for runners and racers if they are relying on their partner, their friends, their family to give them some on-course support during a race? What do you recommend that they do?
For the runner?
For the runner. What should the runner do?
Well, the runner should definitely wear bright colors or something that stands out. So you often will wear like a bright yellow or a bright green singlet and like a bright visor.
Yep.
Usually wear like your Strava
visor,
the orange one, and your cute little
American flag running shorts.
Yep. So it's easier to spot. It's especially if he is pretty easy to spot because there's usually no one around him, so I'm lucky in that way. But if you're further in the pack, and even like New York, you were there, that was a fast race, so you were in a pack then. So it's very helpful to do that. It's very helpful the night before to plan your strategy together, where you're going to meet, what you anticipate your pace being, so that the spectators the spectators know kind of where they should expect you and at what time. Help them download the app ahead of time, the tracker. Hopefully there's some sort of tracking app, and choose a side of the course. So it's oftentimes it's hard to get from one side of the course to the other because of the runners, like they'll have them barricaded off. So you want to know ahead of time,
which side of the street I'll be running down.
And that's helpful for the runner because they don't want to be expending extra energy to like cross over to find you to grab a gel or something. So that helps them a lot.
Yeah. So the runner should wear bright colors. We should do a course review with the support crew the night before. Know at which mile mark to see the other person, but also where in terms of the side of the street to be on. And then it's obviously easier if you are not in a big pack, so it's easier to spot the person.
Yeah.
What tips do you have for the supporter and the race crew in terms of what they should do to kind of be set up for success?
Yeah, I mentioned this briefly earlier, but download the app ahead of time, get the bib number, sign up for text alerts, do all that ahead of time so you're not running around like a crazy person on the day of.
Yeah, so sometimes the nice thing is these races will have an app, and they'll also do text tracking. So every time you go across a 5K or the half marathon point in the course, your support crew or your friends or your family can receive a text message to know where you are. And so that's probably really helpful in terms of understanding how much time you have to get to the next place, or how much longer you have to wait to see the person. What about in terms of your own kind of personal care, since you're going to be out there for three hours at a time?
Yeah. I have found that it's important well, he's really fast. So I usually average like a 5 to 7 mile run.
Yep.
By just watching him.
Point to point. Yep.
So I have to wear running gear. And carry a backpack, carry water, carry snacks. So don't forget about your own needs as anything goes. When you're supporting someone, don't forget to support yourself as well. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help and ask, what I'm just now is not the time to be shy when you're trying to support someone about like what the mile marker is. And I don't really have time to Google a lot of stuff, especially if I'm not from the area. So I just like run up to people where I think the mile marker should be. And I'll be like, is this mile 14 or is this mile 17 or do you know where that is?
Right. So you'll ask like other spectators, coffee shops, people like that, make sure you know where you are and things like that. I think the other things that are really important is to know what pace the runner is running and their goal times, where to be and when. And we have always done this thing, or you've maybe started to do this a little bit more, where you'll sign up for like a scooter rental or the bike rental to help you get around as well a little bit quicker. I think some other things that you've mentioned to me previously that you've done is you bring some entertainment for yourself. So maybe a portable speaker, kind of get the crowd around you jazzed up. You bring some things that are useful to encourage the runner, maybe like a little poster or sign, cowbell, vuvuzela. And then you also carry some gear for post race. So like typically, a runner, when they finish their race, they're pretty cold. And they want to put some warming layers on, they want to change out of their shoes, things like that. And then we always choose a meetup point post race, just in case, we can't find each other. We have a fallback point. And so typically we choose letter Z in terms of the family meetup area, just because there are fewer people there. So I have a great picture of Elizabeth during the 2019 Berlin Marathon. She was on gel duty, and she, there's a picture of her. She ran onto the course, handed me a gel, and she's running off the course. But you can see kind of like my race outfit where I'm wearing, really bright shoes, a hat, a singlet that stands out, and then also these American flag running shorts that stand out. So it's a little bit easier to find me. And you can see on her, she's wearing a backpack, she's wearing her running shoes, she's wearing leggings and tights. So she's geared up as well. Okay, so let's move to the final section of this episode. And we'll just talk a little bit. We call this section the fartlek, which is kind of just like a fun word association segment, and responses are meant to be quick. So when you run, do you run with a watch, a phone, neither?
I used to run with a watch. I used to be really into tracking all the things. I'm not so much anymore. And I realize I actually am faster when I'm not like tracking myself and I'm just going to the rhythm of my breath or whatever energy I'm feeling. So I don't really do that anymore. I do. And I didn't used to listen to music, but that was when I was running a lot with cars around me. And now that we run mainly in parks, I do listen to music.
Got it. And what do you normally listen to? Like pump up music?
Yeah. In my, for my business, we have, I create a list or a Spotify playlist called Jam It Out with Elizabeth. So sometimes I just listen to my own playlist.
Got it. Cool. When you run, do you typically go in a group? Do you go solo?
No group. I'm a solo runner unless I run with you.
Yeah.
And we usually save like our big chats for our runs together. Yeah. But no, I'm not really looking to like make a lot of friends or do a lot of chatting when I run. It's like more of a time for me to go inward and to have time in nature and
Yeah. For us, we definitely do like to use our tandem runs and walks as a time to catch up. And it typically leads to, I think, really good conversation. Yeah. So how often or how many miles would you say you run per week?
Probably 10-ish.
Yeah.
Probably 3 days a week, between 3 to 4 when I'm not training for something.
And do you have a go-to pre-race meal?
Pre-race meal, probably gluten-free bread and peanut butter.
Got it.
Maybe some banana. Yep. And one time we did hard-boiled eggs, and that sat pretty well. I usually get pretty nauseous.
Yeah. So gluten-free bread, peanut butter, banana, hard-boiled eggs, maybe.
And I do use the honey stinger gummies.
Yep.
For my halves. I'm not so much a gel gal, but I do like the gummies.
A little gummy honey stinger energy chews.
Yeah.
Any favorite races
that I've done?
Yeah.
The Vancouver Half.
Vancouver, BC.
Was my favorite.
Yeah. Why is that?
So pretty. The air was so fresh and the people are so nice there. When we did it was a sunny day. We went with a group of friends. It's net downhill, so it's good for your speed. Yeah, it just was so many nice memories from that race.
Yeah, so this was in Vancouver, Canada. You run around Stanley Park. It's just a really enjoyable city and really fun race.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh yeah, and the Burning Man 5K, that was fun. It was really hot, but it was fun and goofy, and we both wore tutus and looked weird. And
Elizabeth and I went to Burning Man in 2015, and we ran the Burning Man 5K race. Hot, dusty desert. Everyone's kind of dressed up in an outfit or costume, so more whimsical, not really a race for time or a record or anything like that, but just a fun race overall. Very unique. So let's go to our cool down section. And, we talked a lot about you supporting me in races. Maybe let's switch gears briefly and talk about me supporting you in races. What are some of the things that I've done that maybe you've appreciated in terms of your races?
Well, sometimes you run with me. Those are my favorite because he's a really good pacer, and
I'll grab if we run together, I'll grab like the water and like the energy drinks and the food and things like that, snacks for Elizabeth on the course.
He'll hold stuff. I mean, we've both done this where like if you start the race out
Right.
with gloves, you hand them off to the person, or if it's dark when you start the race, then the person will hand you sunglasses. Like that's been really helpful. I know that you've taken a lot of stuff that I don't, that I've been carrying, and that's helpful. One time you made a sign with my face on it. That was really cute and fun. I think that was for the DC half, my first half,
Rock
which
and
was
roll DC marathon.
a big
DC half
deal
marathon.
because I'd been injured for so many years. And so my family all came out, and Andrew made this cute sign and he ran a little of that. You ran that race with me.
I think I ran the whole thing with you.
Yeah. And then you've just been so full of encouragement, and I mean, you never have any trouble with the pace and finding me and all of that. I know sometimes you've done it with me sometimes, but I know you've done it with other people, that you'll, like, when you're not racing for your own time, you'll block the wind, which is a really kind gesture for people who are really racing that race. And I know you've done that for me and others as well.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, that is this episode of the Running Shorts podcast. So my wife, Elizabeth, is the guest, or was the guest today. You can find her online at elizabeth-sue.com. And her Instagram is Hey Elizabeth Sue. And so get excited for the next episode of the Running Shorts program. Tuesday morning on the 24th of March, I'm going to be interviewing Steve Lasto, who's the founder of NYC Runs, which is a race organizer, an event production company based here in New York City. We're going to talk about his race series. We're going to talk about the impact of coronavirus in terms of canceling some of the races that he had scheduled. And we'll go from there. So thanks for tuning in today, and we will see you all shortly. Thanks.
Bye.